translation and you make it simple, so other people can the DIY, don't even call it medicine.
Okay.
It's just the manual for the human body.
Right. Right, which is separate.
It's not hard to do, by the way. I've been doing it for 30. Look, back in the 80s, I found out there was that viruses were a fiction, just like terrorists or assassins or whatever. Like the lone gun assassin, which is you're more expert on that thing. Whenever you hear the lone gunman, that should three bells should be ringing that you're being conned.
Right.
So look. Give you an example. I knew a guy who was in the 80s. He was trying to get in the insurance industry, getting people hooked on life insurance. And one of the things is they send you a postcard in the mail. You're supposed to prick your finger and put 3 dots of blood on there for an AIDS test. And I told people, eat a rare steak at least 2 hours before you do that, and you'll always come up positive, always. Right? And because he got $200 for each application, it didn't matter if you. So we just want you see. So we just played around with that, and it was true. Right. So so what and also, by the way, we're just broaching the topic. The PCR test was not designed for. It was just basically very rough, like within 17% accuracy of certain hormones in the blood. Now, for example, the $3,000 cancer screening tests, right? Just go to the dollar store and get a pregnancy test and pee on it. If it shows positive, you got cancer. I mean, no, you don't really have cancer, but you have the hormones that, right?
Right.
So I say, well, wait a second. What if she's pregnant? Well, no, a 55-year-old man is not going to, right? If you're a 55-year-old man or if you're a man and you pee on it and it shows you're positive, that means if you got a cancer screening, you have the same hormone. Do you see? Why isn't this right?
Right. No, I get
simple.
it. Yeah. No, but that's the thing is that there is something about the confidence game that, again, is not really, I don't know what it is. I can't get it across to people that it's not based on a complete fiction. There's always some things built in there that, indeed, if you go and chase it down, you'll find that there's verifiable ways to look at it. Doesn't necessarily mean, like, again, as you said.
Hold on a second. A complete fiction will be real if the people take it as such. They're crazy. They'll say it's a fiction, but they take it seriously. How do I know? Go ahead and insult Santa Claus, right? Okay, or even the Jesus character. The one, right? That doesn't exist historically or biblically, but you see,
right?
Or any other religious character or whatever. Mickey Mouse is a fiction. But there's a multi-billion-dollar, probably not anymore because the Disney franchise is buying everything else.
The Age of Transitions.
You're listening to The Age of Transitions. I'm your host, Aaron Franz, coming at you live this Friday night, August 20th, 2021. Live every Friday night from the facilities of Ocelli.com, 10 p.m. to midnight. First hour, Age of Transitions. Second hour, Uncle the Podcast. Thank you for listening. Thank you for supporting. My website is theageoftransitions.com. Pick up the podcast. You can find my book there. You can buy the t-shirts for all the shows. theageoftransitions.com. We are live tonight, so if you want to call in, you can. Call in and ask a question of our guest. Join in the conversation. The number is 319-527-5016. You can also come on through Skype. If you send a message to producer Chuck, send him a message. Don't call him. But it's charles.ocelli on Skype or 319-527-5016. Tonight we have a special guest, a return guest, someone I'm excited to have on the show, back on the show. He's a journalist, he's an author, prolific writer, just all-around interesting person. He has a new book out, published by Feral House, and I do want to give a quick shout-out to Christina at Feral House, who was very nice and helpful to me leading up to this interview. A cool publisher.
Still, yes, it is, because now it has all these other...
The book is New Age Grifter, The True Story of Gabriel of Urantia and His Cosmic Family. The author is Joseph L. Flatley. Joseph, how you doing tonight?
Fantastic. I'm just trying to tweet out the that we're taking calls, so I'm doing two things at once here.
Got it. Yeah, multitasking. That's the way to do it. Glad.
Yeah, it never works out, but I'll probably be calling Domino's or the Hustler Club or something. I'm sure I got the number wrong, but hey, it's great to be here. What is this, number 3? Is this
appearance on the show?
Yeah,
I believe so. Yeah, that sounds right to me. I was thinking 3. Now that you say it, I think that it must be the third time you've appeared on the Age of Transitions. Great to have you back. It's always fun, and we've had you on in the past to talk about your podcast of the same topic, being Gabriel, your documentation of his religious group, I guess we'll call it.
Sure.
So, first of all, I want to say congratulations, man. It's exciting that you wrote this book. I wish you a lot of success. I hope people will buy this book. It's just really cool. So congrats, man.
Thanks. It's been kind of a long time coming, and I'm just really excited about how it's turned out. And, we've gotten some really good feedback from people. People really seem to enjoy it. And it's my favorite kind of book because it's a pretty quick read. So, it's like, yeah, you can kind of, and I don't mean it's short. I mean, just kind of like a breezy kind of overview of all these crazy aspects of this religious cult, from the ex-members, the community of ex-members that kind of turned me onto the story and told me the story, to, obviously the group didn't have anything to do with this book, but I was able to talk to people that knew Gabriel of Urantia before he was Gabriel of Urantia, and able to read his books and kind of put his beliefs, as I understand them, into larger context of like American belief and weirdo American beliefs. And it's very much a UFO religion of the 20th century variety, and somebody had to write about it, so I guess it was me.
That's an interesting point you just made there, and I feel could get lost. I want to address is that you say it's a UFO religion of the 20th century, which is now past. And I think I get what you're saying, is that Gabriel's not a young man himself.
Right.
He's of the baby boomer generation, whose influence and place in the world is kind of starting to fade a bit. And I don't know. The whole thing, I mean, everything about this story, there's so much comedy, dark comedy going on, because it's very serious, but there's also a lot of funny stuff that pops up. Gabriel's music, not the least of which. But there's just this sort of like quality of like, it seems to be just this sort of like out of touch guy. Is this like a biography of a guy who's somewhat out of touch? Is that accurate or not? Or what do you think?
If he's out of touch, it's really because he's in a bubble of his own design. He one thing that really comes through is, there's a lot of manipulation and a lot of taking advantage of people when you have a high control group such as this, where people at the top reap all the benefits, and then the people at the bottom work their asses off for little or no recompense. And but it's not like a cynical manipulation. Like, I really think that the people at the top really think that they're, destined for something great, and that Gabriel is great. And, I've just heard, not knowing the man, but hearing so many anecdotes from people that knew Gabriel, or people that knew other higher ups in the organization. Like, one common one is Gabriel seems to think he's clairvoyant. And there are numerous times where he like goes into a situation like bragging about how he can read men's minds and he knows the future and all this stuff. And then like the opposite happens, and he just has egg on his face. And I don't think it's an act. I mean, it would be a better act. He would put a little more into it if it was an act, I think he really thinks that he is, this all-seeing vessel of God, and it's a shame. I mean, it's tragic in a lot of ways. Like if you look at Gabriel the man, I feel sorry for him, and I think it's a fascinating story, but also, I don't feel sorry for him because he's taking advantage of people, and I really feel more sorry or more concerned about their well-being.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the point. That's the main point that obviously comes across. And I'll just jump back to what you said at the start of this, in that this book itself, to be an easy read, a quick, easy read, in that it's something that's going to be enjoyable. It tells a story. A lot of this is the story of you actually like on the ground, like you going to a church service of theirs, going to their compound in Arizona, things like that. So it's just real. It's something that's easily digestible, but something that also, I know it tells an important story, gives an important lesson for anybody there willing to listen to it. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. Any thoughts there?
Just that. I don't know. I mean, I have lots of thoughts. It's been pretty wild. I've been doing, 3 podcasts a week for the last couple weeks, and other press and working on other stuff. And it's just like, it's so bizarre, like talking to different people and seeing everybody get something different out of it. And you would think at some point, maybe this is what's great about freeform hour-long podcasts as opposed to like quick media hits. You would think that it'd get repetitive after a while, and I really think that all these different conversations I'm having with different podcasters, and I was on like the Yang Gang YouTube channel the other day.
I heard that. I heard that. I did listen to that. That was really good. I enjoyed that.
It was so bizarre because it was like, my mom. Apparently, all she follows is like, what did she tell me?
The birds, Paula Poundstone.
Bird pictures, Paula Poundstone, and Andrew Yang, And, Andrew Yang's like, what's everybody reading this weekend? And my mom tweeted a picture of my book, and she's like,
nice.
My son's book's coming out. And he's like, gave her props and congratulated her and congratulated me and added me as his friend. And then, like, this dude with the the Yang Gang podcast. It's called the Grassroots Yang Gang podcast, and it's this husband and wife from North Carolina who are now in Vermont. I think one of the Carolinas, and they're just very like grassroots, very enthusiastic, like Andrew Yang fans, and they have like a show, and it's kind of cool because they kind of like, we were talking, and it turned out that really they were kind of adrift. As a lot of people are in this world, people can be spiritually adrift. They end up joining Gabriel's community. They can be politically adrift. They start watching Alex Jones because, like, the actual institutions that are supposed to take care of people spiritually and politically and emotionally, are absolute failures. So you end up talking to these charlatans. And this guy went through this, like, kind of transformation, kind of lost and kind of thinking, this Alex Jones guy has some good ideas and this Q stuff doesn't seem so crazy. Yeah. And then like more he looked at it, he realized, well, obviously it is all nuts. And but they discovered Andrew Yang, and that was their thing, And it was really cool because like I was like, what am I gonna do? Like I'm not gonna talk about universal basic income and automation for an hour. Like what does he want to talk about? And it was really, from his life and his perspective, he could see, he had so much to add to this story of like, why do people join cults? Why do people join new religious movements? Because really that's the point of the book. It's like a small, his community is a small like simulacrum of society. It's like I'm using it as kind of a case study in like where we're at as a country right now. My podcast and newsletter is called Failed State Update, and it was kind of like a tongue-in-cheek name when I named it, and then then COVID happened, and then, you know,
Yeah.
George Floyd happened, and it's like, no, actually, I think this is a fitting title.
Yeah.
And I think that, you know, cults and new religious movements and crazy political cults are an example of the failed state. You know, what happens when the state is in its inexorable decline. So Yasha Levine referred to it, and it's my favorite phrase, so I use it all the time, as the culture of American decline. And that's what we're experiencing. You know, it's the culture of America in its kind of twilight years, I guess.
Oh, you know what? You bring up an interesting point that I want to give you props on again is your podcast Failed State Update. Your recent episode about Danny Casolaro, the octopus story. That I listened to that was great. I just wanted to mention that, and that people should listen to your podcast as well as, you know, check out the book. And that was really something. That's a fascinating story. And you've written a couple article segments. You have another one on the way that isn't written yet. Is that right?
Well, yeah. So when I started this year, I was like, what am I going to do with my year? You know, this book's coming out, so it's like the next book, I'm going to do a podcast. And I've always been fascinated by the Danny Casolaro story. And in case there are listeners that aren't familiar with it, he was a journalist who was following this crazy parapolitical story in the early 90s involving computer hackers and, you know, United States government and the CIA and organized crime and series of murders on an Indian reservation out west.
Yeah.
And he ended up dead. And in August 1991. So the question has always been, did he kill himself? Was he murdered? Why did either of those things happen?
Mm-hmm.
And there was really it's like, as one reads through my series that's going on my newsletter, they'll see that I have an opinion, but there's no real satisfactory, like, for a certain answer. And so I thought, this is great. 30th anniversary of his tragic death is this year, and I'll do a podcast. So I did one episode, and then I realized that I just can't do a podcast. It's like, well, nobody's around. It's 30 years ago. Nobody can really remember anything. And it's like, it's just not the right time for that. So I put out the first episode, and then kind of as a standalone thing. And now I'm doing a series of emails. Well, they are emails because it's my mailing list, but a series of like newsletter articles that are, I think we might be up to 7. Like, they're coming out once a week, but I'm also like putting other stuff in there. So 2 are out now. I think the next installment, the 3rd installment, comes out next Thursday. So once again, you know, sign up for my newsletter. It's free. It's not always going to be free, but all the kind of serialized Octopus Danny Casolaro book that I'm writing is going to be free. So people should check that out.
Yeah, there you go, everybody.
Put it in the show notes.
Yeah, absolutely. I would put a link to the mailing list. Absolutely. That's something I've been meaning to sign up for, but haven't yet myself. So I'm going to do that.
You better.
I will. I look forward to that. And you're going to enjoy this story, Lenny, because part of the octopus story happens out in the desert here in Riverside County, where I live, out near Palm Springs. Large portion of it taking place on the Cabazon Band of Mission Indians reservation. And there's all sorts of, you know, the as the story goes, Wagon Hut was testing illegal weapons tests there on their tribal land and things like that. But I've obviously been out to the area, and it's a nice spot. There's all sorts of interesting things to do out in the Indio area. And one time I was out there, and I was in a cab that was driven by a guy who I am assuming was a member of the tribe. It was a tribal member, because frankly he looked like he was, and so he was a cab driver. He was driving us to the casino, no less, Fantasy Springs Casino, and he, without any prompting by me, he started going on and on about like the Illuminati and all these different conspiracy ideas. And the more I thought about it after the fact, I figure maybe he got into that sort of thinking from being in that milieu or whatever you want to call it, like being in the area of where that story happened. Maybe he heard about it or what. I didn't ask him at the time, and I'm kicking myself now, but I just thought I'd share that story. I just find that fascinating.
Yeah, that would be really interesting to, then again, cab drivers always have crazy things to say.
Yeah, that's true.
Before COVID hit, I was kind of driving Lyft a couple days a week to just to make the car payment, because I was writing this book and not having freelance money come in, and I loved it. I talked to the craziest people, and I would just go off on stuff like that. If somebody was down, yeah, Illuminati, all that stuff.
Sure.
Yeah, it's beautiful out there. I was out there for the first time in early June. I'm working on a project that took me out into the desert, and we drove past Indio and took a look and stuff, and saw the casino. Yeah.
I've always I've tried a couple of times to go to the Cabazon Cultural Center that they have just outside of the casino, but it always seems to be closed. I just want to go in there and ask questions, but it's never open every time I go. So maybe next time. There's
this really bizarre book that I don't know why nobody. Whenever you read books about the octopus, which I think there's 2 or 3 or something, like the Octopus Conspiracy, Danny Castellero, hardcore, Trine Day stuff, it's always so convoluted. And it's been so difficult for me to write this because I'm not going to write something that's convoluted. And it's I feel like I have a little sense of what drove Danny nuts. Just trying to, read, contemporary, newspaper articles and then talk to people who have different parts of the story and try to get my head around it. But there's this book. It's called Return of the Buffalo. It's by an economic development professional and anti-poverty activist who passed away a few years ago. His name was Ambrose Lane, and it's the story of John Phillips. John Booth. Wait, was it Dr. John Phillips Nichols? These names, everybody's. It's also 10:30 at night where I am. So Dr. John Philip Nichols was he was an economic development expert that got involved with the Cabazon tribe, and depending on who you talk to, either helped lift them out of poverty or got them involved in the deep state, or both. Quite possibly both. And this guy, Ambrose Lane, knew Nichols from kind of the international development world, and wrote the story of the birth of casino gambling from the point of view of the regulators and the people in the tribe, and so it has nothing to do with the conspiracy stuff at all.
Sure.
But it's so fascinating to get a completely different perspective on Nichols. But this guy, is this too much?
No.
Should we be talking about the UFOs?
Yeah. I'm sorry. I just I wanted to praise you on the podcast and the octopus, and I mean, I think this is fitting.
Have me back on in a couple weeks. We'll talk about Danny when I get my article rolling.
My
series rolling.
That's a plan. I'll hold you to that. We'll have you back. We'll talk more about it because it's always fascinated me too, that story. I can frankly never get enough of that, and the fact that portion of the story is right out here, more or less in my backyard, that just makes it all the more compelling and interesting to me. But I think this is apropos because, after all, Gabriel would start his church services up with a nice round of conspiracy videos, right? That's something that so we're kind of in the right frame of mind, I think, here. What do you say?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And, Gabriel's early, his development into this new age guru, really a large part of it, and just a large part of his growing as a human being, or or shrinking as a human being, however you want to put it, took place in the desert. You know, he left Pittsburgh and worked his way, you know, so to people who are not familiar with the story, Tony Delavin was this dude in Pittsburgh who like wanted to be a famous singer. He was born in 46, I believe. And so baby boomer, couldn't join, you know, wasn't draftable, was 4F because of something. And so he was this like coffee house Christian, and he wanted to be like a famous musician, and he just couldn't make it as a musician. And he got married and his wife left him. His daughter died under tragic circumstances, like a medical condition, which, you know, really upset him, obviously. Mm-hmm. And he just kind of like worked his way across the country, working for different like Christian like recovery groups and like different Christian organizations, and became less Catholic, more Christian as he moved west. And then, you know, by the time he got to the desert, it was very much like, you know, he spends enough time out there and like the Christianity thing doesn't work. And he actually tried to start a spiritual community, which, talking to people that knew him back then, seems like his, you know, his cult 1.0, but it didn't work out.
Got it.
Next thing you know, he's hanging out in the desert, talking to UFOs, hearing voices. You know, so, you know, there's something about that desert vibe that's very, very much, you know, about the paranormal and UFOs. So, I mean, similar thing. So desert. You gave me desert. I brought it back to the book.
Yeah. Hey, I'm right there with you. I know all about the desert. It's a place for this kind of stuff. It seems to bring that out of people for whatever reason. I don't know what it is. I mean, I could sit here and speculate, but I won't. I want to remind people that this is a live show. You can call in with a question for our guest, Joseph L Flatley, the author of the new book, New Age Grifter, True Story of Gabriel of Urantia. Ask him a question. The phone number is 319-527-5016. You can also come on through Skype, message Chuck. He's Charles Ocelli on Skype, or call 319-527-5016. Yeah, the the UFOs, the starting of a religious group. There's just it's just fascinating to me that I'm trying to get inside of Gabriel's head as much as that is possible, but I mean, he seems to separate himself, certainly from the other members of his group, for obvious reasons. But I mean, what about that? What about the separation within the group that is GCCA, right? I always want to say like Global Communications Community Alliance. I always want to put an LLC at the end of that.
Yeah, sounds like a community college. Global Community Communications Alliance, which is the dumbest name. It was called the American. Excuse me. It was called the Aquarian Concepts Community. It was founded in 1989 in Sedona, and then there was kind of like a shift. I don't know, maybe 15 years ago, where they wanted to like emphasize the New Agey less, and they wanted to emphasize kind of Christian roots more. At least that was kind of the justification for them moving south from Sedona into this compound in the middle of the desert. Also, I think part of it was their neighbors couldn't stand them, you know, and they wanted to have like a place where they could all live really with as little interaction with the outside world as possible.
Yeah.
And then that they took that, you know, it went from being like a local concern to a global concern, at least in their head. They were doing a lot of like webcasts and, you know, like putting church services on webcasts and giving, you know, lectures and stuff. So global, it became like, you know, they wanted to create like an institution, or at least give it like an institutional seeming name. So yeah, it's the Global Community Communications Alliance. And obviously a big part of their thing is being separate from the world. And also, I think Gabriel just doesn't like the people around him. I mean, he's got a mansion. He's got good food. He's got, he can watch movies all day or whatever he wants to do, So it's like, why would you talk to the people? There's a point in cults, the existence of cults. Was it Mark Gallanter, who was a really interesting guy? I think I think he's still around. I think he was like NYU School of Medicine psychologist, and he's written books on cults and new religious movements, and talks about where there's a point where the charismatic leader no longer has to physically be the focal point. The organization kind of takes over that role.
Okay.
So it's I think they must be kind of getting there. Scientology obviously survived the death of L. Ron Hubbard. Pretty soon the GCCA is going to have to survive the death of Gabriel of Urantia.
Yeah.
Now, if you talk to Gabriel, he claims that, he doesn't have to die, but he's weary from doing all this work, and he's ready to do whatever the Father wants him to do. So, yeah, sure.
Okay.
Whatever it takes,
Yeah, that's one way to put it. So I can imagine that he would want to break from all that. That's the odd thing, is that he's made out so well in a material sense through creating this group, getting the cult-like devotion from his followers, getting money from his followers, and free labor from his followers. But I don't know. It's just, whenever you look at it, there's this hollowness to it. And I mean, it doesn't seem like it would be fun. You know what I mean? It just doesn't seem like a fun situation for anyone, including him. It's like, what becomes the motivation? I mean, what would you, if you had to guess, I know that's what you're doing, what would you guess motivates Gabriel the most? What's motivating him to do what it is that he does?
Oh, ego. He absolutely, I mean, it's as simple as a low self-esteem, never felt like daddy loved him enough. This is all some psychodrama that's taking place way under the surface, but I think that's the root. His daughter put it quite poignantly in the end of the book. It's if you don't love yourself and you have problems that you don't take care of, you start kind of creating the world to fit your self-image or your desired self-image, so it's I think he's just a very hurt little boy who literally, through some part talent, some part luck, some part just total freak of nature, is able to get all these people wrapped up in his baggage, basically.
Yeah.
And and he's not a happy man from what I've heard, so I'm kind of at a loss, because most people I talk to who have left, the people that I know the most, that knows the situation most, who I know the most, they've all left 2, 3, 5, 10, 20 years ago. So it's not like I have a perfect up-to-date idea of what's going on there, although I do have my little spies that are in the cult, but it's not the same as sitting down and talking with somebody every day for a week or whatever. It's getting emails now and then, but he's an angry man. He's not fulfilled. He's not happy. He's wasted his life chasing, creating this weird virtual reality where people have to worship him, but everybody knows it's a sham. I mean, talking to so many ex-members of this group and seeing how the group operates has done for me is really kind of de-emphasize the sense of people, when they think of cults, they think it has to be like a very charismatic guy with an ironclad grip on the souls of his followers, and they're locked in a compound. And, life in a group like this is really not that much different than any other terrible life. I mean, it's like, just as, I have tons of friends that are trapped in their horrible lives every bit as much as these people are. And they don't have a Gabriel to blame.
Yeah,
they don't have to keep going to work if they don't want to.
Yeah.
That's not to say that there's not some like intense psychological stuff going on here, and this isn't a special case. But, when I don't see people being like, when I see people get sucked in, I really see people not that much different than, times when I felt like my life was crap and I didn't have any way to change it. But who I really feel bad for are the kids, because it's one thing to be an adult and be dragged into this horrible situation and be tricked and be kind of like stripped of your options until you really can't leave. But it's another to be born into it and think that, Gabriel's God and that the world's going to end before you turn 18.
Yeah.
That's like a whole nother level of dysfunction, and it's heartbreaking.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's disturbing to say the least. And I mean, where Gabriel has his faults, certainly the followers do too. And I don't know. I feel like this is important now. This story, perhaps its importance now is that, to an extent, I mean, none of us are different than the followers in this group, in that we all, to one extent or another, at some point have subscribed to, somebody else's narrative, or just been part of this group or this movement or anything that probably isn't useful in the end to us.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And there's more of them than ever to choose from now.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, are you of the opinion that there are more than ever, and are they rampant? And why do you think that might be? Would you agree with that?
Well, it's just so hard to say. I mean, I'm sure if I had thought before we got on the phone, I could have looked up a study or something. But I hate to just assume that because it's more prevalent or because I see more of it, that there is more. Sure. I mean, that's certainly the case with conspiracy belief in general. And I always make a difference between parapolitics, which is the accurate and historically valid truth of conspiracies, and what I call conspiracy theory, just for lack of a better word, which is just nuttery that looks like parapolitics but is just completely made up craziness. And QAnon, flat Earth, conspiracy beliefs like that.
Yeah.
I mean, they're certainly more prevalent. I think that I think there have been surveys that I've seen where it's we're just more aware of them because it's on TV now, and we had a conspiracy theorist in the White House. But and I feel like cults might be kind of the same way. The only I think you can take it both ways. Cults are a lot more visible in society, and there are more of them. I don't know that there are more of them, but
sure,
I feel like there would be, or there should be. That would be, I would wager that guess, because they're different now in the sense that they've been kind of, cult leaders are now able to operate on the internet. They don't even have to meet you. They don't even have to have a physical location. You're sending them money with Cash App, and you're watching their YouTube videos, and they're getting you to do stuff through Instagram DMs. And it's always been the case that we think of a cult being 100 or 1,000 people, but that same dynamic exists in groups of 2, 3, 5. We could be entering an age, and I feel like we are entering an age of a gazillion tiny cults just flowering
Sure.
on the internet, you know, and
Yeah.
it's like, which it's, you know, once again, hand in hand with the collapse of the end of everything you know and love.
Got it.
Circa 2021.
Yeah. Yeah. My mind returns to something it was on a few minutes ago. I'm going to go back to it. It's just the topic of channeled material. Gabriel is a guy one of these people that claims to be channeling entities.
But he doesn't channel.
Oh, okay. Oh, sorry. Okay. Well,
He's an audio fusion material complement.
oh, my mistake.
I mean, I understand everything he does is exactly like channeling, but yeah, he's an audio fusion material complement, and everybody else who channels is a fraud and a phony and
Got it.
Possessed by aliens, evil entities. But yeah, he's an audio fusion material complement. He opens himself up. He connects to I don't know who, like these celestial entities. Oh, my mind's just boggled after talking about this stuff all the time lately. And they speak through him. And, you know, oddly enough, they talk about like how great his music is and, you know, what a badass he is and how he's like, you know, such a devil with the ladies. But yeah, definitely not a channel.
Okay. What's your opinion on channeled material? I guess we can't be talking about Gabriel now, but channeled material.
Let's talk about Gabriel. We'll talk about Gabriel too. Oh, I don't know. I mean, there seems to be a psychological thing that happens where I don't know if people are tapping into their subconscious. I don't know if it's like a what's her name? T.M. Lerman. She's a anthropologist. She's absolutely fascinating. She's trying to look at one of her books to see give you a name. She has like a book called Seduction. Something I don't know.
It's like studies people that claim to be channeling entities.
Well, what she does is like she's done a couple books. She's done a couple studies on like Christians who speak in tongues and who channel. You know. The Lord speaks through them, and also has done a study on like Western esoteric occultists, and you know, she's observed the phenomenon. It's real, but like the thing that makes it interesting is like you talk to anybody who channels or who knows anything about channeling, and they all just assume it's just like this spontaneous outpouring of you know. Communication of some sort, when really, you know, she's documented the people that channel, they work at it. You know, it's like it's a process that takes place over time. You know, nobody goes into church and just starts babbling in, you know, other tongues. It's like Christian churches take very seriously like the creation of that gift, sort of like you know, repressed memories take sometimes years to conjure up. You know, it just never happens spontaneously. And so, you know, it's a phenomenon, and it's part of a, you know, people who have studied it scientifically say that it's part of a process, and I don't know what they're engaging with in that process. But I mean, it certainly happens, and like people that do it take it very seriously. And I'm sure there's absolutely no doubt in Gabriel's mind that he is talking to Paladin or the Brighton Morning Star or any of these Skyhawk, any of these celestial entities.
I like that one. Yeah. Does he have times where he's doing this and he speaks in like does he change his voice to like different characters? That's what he does, right?
Yeah. And it's so interesting because like him and his followers are so wrapped up in this drama that I've heard so many people describe how like when he talks in this really deep voice, and it's like, you know, makes it sound like James Earl Jones or something, you know, and it's just like it's like a whole different person takes over him, and it's like it can't really be him. It must be, you know, some of these guys kind of like debate whether it's like, is it a fallen being that's speaking through him? Or is it some kind of like government mind control, voice to skull technology? Because, you know, Gabriel's a dumbass and these guys were really smart, and Gabriel's not a good actor, but this seems like a completely different person. So like, I've been dying to see or hear or get any information about this that I could. You know, the GCCA people are really stingy with their records. They record everything. They record every transmission, but it's like high security. It's like the one guy Laird, who's a source for this book, his story is really interesting. He was the sound man for these space beings. So like, it would be his job to like be there and to like record them talking. And he, you know, he thinks it's like CIA mind control technology. And he thinks that the reason he didn't like get fully sucked in was the fact that like he couldn't get immersed in this stuff because he had to like worry about like the levels on the microphones, you know. Yeah. So it's like, you know,
so he has his own conspiratorial take on what's happening that may be almost equally as out there as what Gabriel is doing in the first place. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Oh yeah, totally. I mean, it's like they were through something really weird and that really defies explanation in a lot of ways. And I think that they had to find explanations, and their explanations, you know, it's not my job to like disprove the MK Ultra theory of Gabriel's, you know, channeling or whatever. But
okay, yeah.
But you know, but what the interesting part to me is that so Primetime Live in like the late 90s snuck a hidden camera in to like one of their conferences or whatever.
Yeah.
And like they got like a little snippet of Gabriel channeling, and it was just like, and he sounded like he was doing like a Minnie Mouse impersonation. It was like, it was really funny and really high pitched voice. He was like talking about, he's like, oh, I'm going to regret it. I'm going to like do the impersonation and somebody's going to like take the clip and it's going to end up like a drop on Office Hours or something. But it's like, you know, he's like, Gabriel's music is cosmopop because it's cosmically popular, you know, just shit like that, stuff like that. Excuse me. And that's all I had, you know, that's like the only recording of a channel. And finally, at the end of this book, as I was writing it, somebody got their hands on a cassette of a different being that spoke through Gabriel and sent it to me.
Nice.
And I was expecting, you know, Darth Vader. And it's just Gabriel like speaking a little low and like, but you know, he's still got that like Daffy Duck lisp or whatever, the Elmer Fudd lisp. And it's like, but I mean, the former followers aren't idiots, and they weren't BSing me.
Yeah.
You know, they were wrapped up in this drama that they had been led through by this high control group that, you know, had a grasp on people's brains, and they felt and thought and heard something much more profound and much more freakish. Which, you know, it's like, what is the phenomenon there? You know, I think it speaks to the kind of like reality is a, you know, this is like my Robert Anton Wilson, but like reality is an interaction between more than one person, you know? So it's like, so they created a very strong, very real reality in that compound with Gabriel and his elders, you know, it's not just him. He's got like half a dozen people that do his bidding that make this operate. Like if you're going to blame anybody, you can't blame Gabriel without blaming them. And the people who were there, not that they were willing accomplices, or that they were idiots, but just that they were part of something bigger than themselves. So like hearing stuff like that's really fascinating. It's like, just when I think I can imagine what it would be like to be in a cult, I'm realized that I probably can't, you know?
Yeah. Well, I think it kind of goes back to that concept of the power of the stage and kind of the Dionysian thing with like the god of the mask, you know, and how the drama that is performed isn't real in any sense. However, the mind creates it, makes it real, makes it reality for what that's worth. And, you know, you get drunk on the effects of the performance and things like that. And yeah, it's just fascinating to think that a guy changing his voice can be that convincing. However, first-hand accounts tell us that certainly it is.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Absolutely.
And, you know, I've also, you know, there's another miracle that that kind of occurred under, you know, through Gabriel that is in the book. And it's, you know, he met this Hopi holy man that was like in his 100 years old or something. And Titus, the Hopi elder. And, you know, people who were there claim that, or told me, and I believe that they saw this, you know, experience that, you know, Gabriel's presence completely changed this person. And, you know, they went from being you know, like at death's door to like wide-eyed and, you know, full of zest and viv and vigor. And they were like speaking Hopi, which Gabriel didn't know, and singing Hopi songs and stuff. And it's like, I don't doubt at all that that's what these people experienced. I go into the book and I'll let people buy the book, you know, explain how it could have a more mundane explanation. But, you know, it's like when you're in the middle of that mind space, it's, you know, you're
caught up.
Yeah, you're caught up, and you know, how you explain things, you know, might be a little different. Your explanations, I guess.
Sure. Yeah. No, I get it. I believe that if people take the time to relate to all this, they'll see that similar things have happened to them in their lives. And I think that's useful to do, is to relate to these people, like even people like Gabriel, even though your book is clearly critical of him and what he's doing. I think relating to the situation that he's in, and certainly that he's put his followers into, is important and necessary. And did you intend that to be part of the book, or did you ever give that any thought, or no?
Well, you know, my whole, you know, I've been writing about conspiracies, excuse me, like not conspiracy theories and cults and fringe subcultures, not French subcultures that somebody thought I said once, but fringe. You know, like I've been writing about this stuff for a long time, and what always drew me to it was these are areas of very valid areas of human existence that get ignored or pushed aside, and to the detriment of everybody, because the people that follow Gabriel are not different than us. They're not fundamentally different. They don't have different brains, you know. And it's like, and looking at something like why somebody joins a high control group like this, why they stick it out, really just, you know, there's so much that's relevant about you and your daily life if you pay attention. So, you know, I worry about the person that thinks they're above this stuff, because I think they're the first people that'll be sucked into it.
Yeah. I'm right there with you. And yeah, that's a theme that carries through all of your work for sure. And one that I really appreciate and enjoy. So it's always good to talk to you for that alone, I got to say. So thanks again for coming on. Let the audience know where they can find your book, New Age Grifter, the book. Where can they find it? How can they get a hold of it?
New Age Grifter, the true story of Gabriel of Urantia and his cosmic family. It's my first book on a publisher called Feral House, which is like a classic indie press, like well-known, crazy reputation. Like basically why I became a writer, because the weird books that these guys put out. So I'm thrilled that they're putting it out. So shout out to Jessica and Christina. But it's coming out on Tuesday, the 24th. It will be, if you pre-order it now from Amazon, you might even get it. I think you'll still get it. You should have, unless you're in Alaska or something, you should be able to have it on your front porch, on your front stoop on the release date. Also available as an ebook, obviously. But all my links, all my books, lennyflatley.net, and stories, short films I've made, links to my other books, and my podcasts, and Failed State Update is the name of my podcast and my newsletter. And I suggest everybody go right now to lennyflatley.substack.com and sign up for the newsletter.
Yes, I'll repeat that. If only that I remember to do, because as I said, I haven't yet, and I'm going to, because I want to keep up with the Danny Casolaro story, any sort of news that you have upcoming. So yeah, do sign up for Joseph L. Flatley's newsletter. And do get the book, New Age Grifter, because it's, as we're saying, it's going to be one of those enjoyable reads. It's not going to be challenging. It's not going to be like too over the top, and it's going to be just a nice, fun read that you'll also get a lot out of. And there's a lot of depth, and it's again, I want to say a lot of dark comedy mixed in, which I always love that sort of thing. So there you have it. This is Friday Night Live on the ageoftransitions.com, and in the next hour, the show becomes Uncle the Broadcast. Joseph, would you like to stay for the next hour, or do you have to go tonight?
I couldn't handle that. There's no way I could handle. No. It is late on the East Coast, and I am ready to put my child to bed and go to bed myself. So
okay, fair enough. But
I will be back on to talk about Danny Casolaro anytime.
Yeah, I definitely want to do that. As I said, I've always enjoyed that story. I don't want to say I was surprised when I saw it on Failed State Update, but I was excited. I was like, oh man, yeah, and your particular insights and your, I guess, I don't know if you'd call it new information, but it seemed that way to me at least. It was just really exciting. So we will have you back. So that's good.
Great. Yeah, there's definitely some stuff about the story that is new that I will be revealing for the first time. There's a new angle to it, but a lot of it is just a great yarn from your 30 years ago,
Yeah, it's got it. That's the thing about this too, is the Casolaro story has like this vintage appeal to it as well, and it's like from anything that's over 20 years ago has something. There's something to it. There's something to be said for. There's an actual appeal there. Do you have any quick thoughts just on that concept alone before you get going?
I don't know, man. It's weird to me because I was an adult 30 years ago, which or a teenager. So it's like I was kind of almost fully formed. So it's like that doesn't seem like a long time to me ago. You know what I mean?
Sure.
It's like I'm just realizing that I'm not 16, but yeah, I'm sure it's totally like, has some retro appeal to Generation Z or whatever.
Well, again, you're a lot like Gabriel, and that he was an up-and-coming musician, and you're not much different yourself, right?
Yeah. I haven't had 3 wives, and I don't speak to channeled entities. But other than that, I'm basically Gabriel. Basically the same guy.
All right. Well, Joseph L. Flatley, again, lennyflatley.net is the website. Get the new book, New Age Grifter. Sign up for the newsletter. Thank you very much, Joseph, for being here.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Okay, we'll talk to you again soon. So there he goes, Joseph L. Flatley, author. Always fun to talk to him. He'll be back soon. We'll be in touch. Coming up in the next hour, of course, is Uncle the Podcast. So if you're listening live on Ocelli.com this Friday night, don't touch that dial. because you're going to want to be part of the Uncle Spectacular. That it happens every Friday night. So, and you can call into that as well. So the call-in line will remain open for the next hour. So we hope that you'll call in and join the fun there. Thank you for all of your support that you show to this show. I also wanted to, before I go, give another shout out to recent guest Sam Idlet, whose book is Dancing with My Fate. I just want to remind people that that's another independent book out there. And I think just in general, it's good to support authors like that are just independent people out there putting out interesting material. So, yeah, Dancing with My Fate. Shout out to Sam Idlet again. Thank you, everybody, for the recent shirt orders. Had quite a few coming in. The Age of Transitions shirts are still available, as are the Ocelli Effect shirts and Uncle shirts too. So all available at theageoftransitions.com. I'm Aaron Franz. My Twitter is at FranzSimulation if you're interested in that. I want to thank you for listening to the Age of Transitions podcast. And as always, I was ending by saying, Seeker, seek on.
The Age of Transitions.